In his long and illustrious career, John Ford directed more than 100 movies. Many of them are considered classics: The Iron Horse, The Informer, The Grapes of Wrath, How Green Was My Valley, She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, The Searchers. But even on that remarkable roster, The Quiet Man still stands out. It was one of the most personal and deeply felt films Ford ever made, and it won the director his 4th Academy Award. As usual, Ford was busy making a movie when the Oscar ceremony was held, so accepting for him was his friend and favorite star, John Wayne, who had many reasons to feel a part of this triumphant moment. Hello, I'm Leonard Matlin, and this shillelagh is a memento that's been in the John Wayne family for more than 40 years, ever since the whole family spent a summer in Ireland making The Quiet Man. We're here to tell that story, the years it took for John Ford to bring his project to life, and the battles he fought along the way, the stars who fought by his side and helped make his dream a reality, and the incredible extended family that gathered together to create this truly memorable motion picture. The story of The Quiet Man begins here, in the pages of the Saturday Evening Post. That's where Maurice Walsh's simple short story was published in 1933. 3 years later, John Ford purchased the screen rights from the author for $10, with the promise of more if he ever managed to make the film. John Ford was already considered one of the movie's top directors, though his greatest triumphs still lay ahead. He'd been making successful movies since the teens, films with heart and soul, as well as action and excitement. Ford was no company man. He made movies to please himself, and often drew on his strong Irish heritage. But no one wanted Ford's story. In spite of his huge successes at several studios, and in spite of his shelf full of Academy Awards, none of the Hollywood moguls thought this simple Irish story had any potential to attract moviegoers. In 1945, Ford visited Maureen O'Hara on the set of an RKO picture called The Spanish Main. 4 years earlier, he directed her in How Green Was My Valley, and they hit it off. Now, Ford told her about his pet project and offered her the leading female role. She accepted immediately and said she'd be ready whenever he was. The Irish-born actress was so committed to the project that in years to come, she even took down pages of the script in shorthand from Ford. Ford formed Argosy Productions with veteran producer Marion C. Cooper. They made successful films for RKO and MGM, but couldn't get The Quiet Man off the ground. In 1948, they thought they had their problems licked, but the necessary money still wasn't there. But Ford and Cooper were about to find a new home at the unlikeliest address in town, Republic Pictures. Republic was primarily a B-movie studio, famous for turning out westerns and Saturday matinee serials, and doing it on a tight budget. Ford's last film had cost over $2 million. For the same amount, Republic could and did turn out a whole year's worth of cowboy pictures. Republic did have one priceless asset, a contract with John Wayne. And Wayne thought Republic might give Ford a chance to make his Irish story. Republic's tough-minded boss, Herbert J. Yates, was trying to upgrade the studio's product. He jumped at the chance to have a man of Ford's reputation at his studio and signed him to a 3-picture deal. But he was no different from any other mogul in town. He didn't think The Quiet Man spelled box office, and he refused to do it unless Ford and his partner Cooper provided another picture first, one that made money. This is the movie that paved the way for The Quiet Man. John Ford directing a story of the U.S. cavalry with John Wayne in the lead? How could you lose? Rio Grande was the third of Ford's cavalry films, following Fort Apache and She Wore a Yellow Ribbon. This one wasn't as ambitious or expensive. Yates made him trim his budget right to the bone. In someone else's hands, the film might have suffered, but Ford was on familiar turf, able to make a solid box office western with plenty of action and a sentimental human story that audiences would like. He surrounded himself with familiar faces, including John Wayne, Maureen O'Hara, and Victor McLaglen. All had worked with him before, and all would join him 1 year later to make The Quiet Man. Ford's use of the same actors, both stars and featured players, over and over again was not coincidental. He felt a special kinship with these people, as they did with him. But no one had a longer, more successful relationship with Ford than John Wayne. On a 1959 television show, Wayne got to introduce his mentor, and Ford got to spin his tale of how Wayne's movie career came about.
We started our association many years ago when he kicked me when I wasn't sitting down. I think he's probably the greatest storyteller in the business. Can't get his pipe on his mantelpiece for the awards, critic and academy that have been given to him for his work. To him, nothing is impossible for an actor. He's a hard taskmaster, but his ability commands respect. Every actor in Hollywood wants to work with him. I have only one bit of advice to the young ones. Don't ever disagree with him standing up. Liable to wind up like I did. Pappy Ford.
How do you do, Mr. Ford? You did introduce John Wayne into pictures, am I right?
That's correct. Duke was an undergraduate at USC when I first saw him. He was young Duke then, now he's old Duke. He was our prop man, or third assistant prop man during his summer vacations. I asked him what he wanted to do, what he was studying for. Was he taking pre-med, pre-legal? And he said, oh, he wanted to be a director. So eventually he drifted into small parts and into bigger ones, and when the story of Stagecoach came along, I said I'd like to have Duke for it. And we got him in.
Don't you want another purple?
No, thanks. and there he is. And here he is.
Wayne and Ford worked together more than a dozen times, not counting cameo appearances, radio and TV shows, and other favors over a period of 40 years. They made many landmark films together, but their relationship went far beyond that of filmmaker and star.
While they were great personal friends, my father also had this respect that could be akin to a father and son relationship. He often asked for and took Mr. Ford's advice on things, both with respect to his personal life and also his career. And whenever Ford wanted him, all he had to do was do this, and my father came running.
Oh, he had enormous respect for him. I think he was intimidated by him a little bit, but I would say in a nice way. I think he would do anything for Uncle Jack because he respected him so. And I think Uncle Jack was right on about my father. He knew where he looked good. So my father I think, did well to trust him.
He really knew what a fantastic director he is. A lot of people think he was the greatest director that ever lived. My father was one of those people.
Rio Grande was not just one of Ford and Wayne's memorable collaborations. It was also the first time Wayne worked on screen with Maureen O'Hara, and their chemistry was undeniable.
Carrying that around for a long time, hoping someday to pull a little...
I'll take the flowers now.
My father was a major movie star, and I think that you have to kind of explode off the screen, you know, and be larger than life. And I think Maureen was a woman that could match him on the screen.
Aren't you going to kiss me goodbye?
I never want to kiss you goodbye, Kathleen.
And so something happened on the screen. There was an electricity there. But she could match John Wayne, kiss for kiss, punch for punch, you know, stride for stride.
When Rio Grande turned out well and promised to be a hit, Herb Yates gave the go-ahead for The Quiet Man. Richard Llewellyn, author of How Green Was My Valley, expanded Maurice Walsh's short story, and then Frank S. Nugent wrote the finished script. Nugent's screenplay opened with these words: "Behind the title and the credits, there will be a series of shots in and around Galway, which the director knows like the back of his hand. The same back of the hand which this writer would get if he risked suggesting the shots." Right from the start, it was agreed that The Quiet Man would have to be filmed where it took place. And to Herb Yates' consternation, Ford insisted that it be shot in Technicolor. Yates owned a much cheaper process called True Color, which was anything but true. Ford would have none of that. Wynton C. Hoke, who'd won an Oscar photographing She Wore a Yellow Ribbon in Technicolor, would again take his position behind the camera on location in the Emerald Isle. Now, it might seem obvious today, to make a film about Ireland, go to Ireland. But that wasn't so commonplace back then. In the 1930s, studios almost never went to real-life locations. They built them in their own backyard. Even when John Ford made How Green Was My Valley in 1941, an entire Welsh village was constructed in Malibu, California. It was only after the end of World War II that Hollywood began to embrace a new realism by sending stars and filmmakers overseas. Ford's decision to travel for this film was right, After all, how could you ever match the green of Ireland anywhere else in the world? That and the prospect of returning to his ancestral homeland made this journey a must for Ford and a treat for his troupe, many of whom were Irish Americans. But it was also a challenge. Huge Technicolor cameras and a special staff to maintain them were brought in from London, borrowed from other British studios. Research was done to determine how likely it would be for those cameras to shoot in sunshine and how late that sun would shine during the summer months. Then there were itineraries to be planned for cast and crew. Irish-born actor Arthur Shields brought along his sister. Maureen O'Hara traveled with her newborn baby and a nurse. And Ward Bond, busy completing another picture, would have to join the rest of the company at a later date. A master schedule was worked out to determine exactly which scenes would be filmed on location and which could be saved and shot later on when the troupe returned to Hollywood. Since it was summer when the Quiet Man Company left for Ireland, John Wayne decided to bring all 4 of his children with him. His oldest son, Michael, and oldest daughter, Tony, were both in their teens at the time and have particularly vivid memories of the experience.
We've lived in California all our lives with palm trees, and, all of a sudden there's a huge castle there, there's a great big river there, and it was absolutely fabulous. It didn't have a lot of the modern conveniences. My father had a bathroom, Uncle Jack had a bathroom, and I think Maureen had a bathroom. But the rest of the crew and everybody, we had to share like this one big bathroom area and one big shower area. And so we learned very fast that if we wanted to get up in the morning and take a shower, that we should not go in there early because it wouldn't do to have the crew waiting for us to get out of the shower room,
Cong, which was the small town near Ashford Castle where the film was shot, the town where the film was shot, Cong got electricity while we were there. This was in 1951. I remember they had the lights on the wires, all around the kind of the town square. And people were dancing and people were very, very happy. Then they found out that they had to pay for this electricity. They said, well, hey, we don't need it, get rid of it. And they really said, we really don't need the electricity. Ashford Castle had its own generator, but people did not have electricity, and this was 1951.
What Ireland and the little village of Cong may have lacked in amenities, it made up for in charm. The townspeople were delighted to have a movie company in their midst, particularly this Irish-American troupe, which mingled easily with the locals and won their hearts at every turn. The local newspaper, the Connaught Tribune, kept readers apprised of the Hollywood invasion and the visitors' colorful doings, from prop man Ace Holmes' search for an old-fashioned wooden 4-poster bed to Ward Bond's weekend fishing exploits. Ford had already cast members of Dublin's Abbey Theatre in key supporting roles, but he also called on the townspeople to add local color and a crowd to watch the climactic brawl between John Wayne and Victor McLaglen. Though if you looked carefully, you'd also spot some ringers. The station master was played by John Wayne's makeup man, Webb Overlander. And wait, in this crowd shot, isn't that one of John Wayne's kids?
Uncle Jack decided that he was going to use us in the film. And I think actually what he wanted was Patrick and Melinda, who are in the cart with Maureen. And then I think he thought, well, these other 2 poor souls, they need to be in it too. So we all dressed up in costumes, and Michael and I are standing on either side of the cart, and Maureen is in the cart with Patrick and Melinda, and they have lines and everything,
Will you not be putting up your bonnet, Mary Kay? Indeed, I will not. No? No.
Ford liked to surround himself with family when he was making a film. And that was certainly true in the production of The Quiet Man. His son Patrick worked as an assistant, and his daughter Barbara served as an assistant editor on the picture. But there was another Ford in front of the camera. Francis Ford plays old Dan Tobin in The Quiet Man. He was a fixture in many of his brother's films, but this went far beyond nepotism. Back in the teens, Francis Ford was a star, the leading man in a great many films and popular serials, and it was he who led his much younger brother John, then known as Jack, into the movie business. Jack never forgot Francis's influence or his generosity. Ford's other brother, Eddie O'Ferna, was also on hand, working behind the scenes, and 2 of Maureen O'Hara's brothers appear in the film. One of them, James Lilburn, plays Father Paul. Charles Fitzsimons plays Forbes, and as a barrister or lawyer in real life, helped make arrangements for the company to shoot in Ireland. The Quiet Man also features 2 members of another distinguished Irish acting family. Barry Fitzgerald was by now a star, having received an Academy Award for his performance in Going My Way with Bing Crosby. Now he was returning to native soil, along with his brother Arthur Shields, who'd also moved to Hollywood to work for Ford in The Plow and the Stars. Then there were the members of John Ford's extended family. Like John Wayne, Ward Bond had been a football player at the University of Southern California who caught the director's eye. He became one of Hollywood's busiest character actors and one of John Ford's favorites. Another longtime colleague of Ford's was the film's co-star, Victor Matlin. They'd first worked together in 1928 and made many films in the years since. It was Ford who steered Matlin to an Academy Award in 1935 for his compelling performance as Gypo Nolan, the Irish turncoat in The Informer.
It really does give me great pleasure to present you this award for the best performance of 1935 in The Informer. Thank you, Mr. Griffith. I can hardly find words to express my gratitude and thanks for this. Naturally, I want to thank everybody responsible for making this possible. Needless to say, I'm very happy, and I want to thank you one and all.
Now, more than 15 years later, Matlin and Ford were teamed again, with one significant change: the presence of Victor's son, Andrew Matlin, as second assistant director.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, first of all, I love the idea of being on this picture. Knowing my father was in it made it doubly great for me to go. I'd already become a first assistant, and there's only room for one first assistant on a picture, and that was Wingate Smith, John Ford's brother-in-law. So, but they said, look, Andy, you go as a second, and, you know, you make your own way when you get there, which I did. And Wingate was, I'll use the word gracious. I mean, he wasn't trying to set any records. He stood by and let me do most of the job, which was good for me because I was a very eager assistant.
Ford was known to be crafty and often cantankerous. Matlin says he got along fine with the director, but he quickly learned he'd have to be on his toes.
Funny story. I mean, the first day of shooting on the picture, when we got there, Ashford Castle, it's all new to us, and we're all eager, and we're waiting the first day. And the one thing Ford says, he said, have all the actors on the set. And we didn't even say, yeah, but, what if, or anything, because we knew if he said it, he meant it, except for Francis Ford, because the production manager, Lukather, and I, and Wingate, that we decided that there'd be no way that he would be working on that first day, right around Ashford Castle and on the golf course. Ford walks on the set, puffing his pipe, sits down. We're kind of waiting for the first word. Okay, Frank will be in the first shot. He looked around, saw that Frank wasn't there, and thought he'd give us a little bit of trouble, which he did. We had to lay a whole white beard on him, quicker than it had ever been laid before, you know, like in 10 minutes. And by the time the camera was set up, Frank was in the first shot.
Matlin also learned right away what Ford could put his actors through and what kind of stuff Maureen O'Hara was made of.
It was one of the first things she shot, and one of the first, I asked Ford whether I should move some of the sheep dung off because I noticed what was happening in the rehearsal. I said, Jack, don't you want to move some of that sheep dung? I mean, the field was covered. Leave it there, he said. So Ford really dragged Maureen through a lot of it. I'm sure she was a little bit black and blue, but that was very real.
Even astute viewers would swear that every frame of the film was made in the Emerald Isle, but they'd be wrong. Not only were all the interiors filmed at Republic Studios, but a number of supposed exteriors were shot there too. This was the ultimate movie-making illusion. Long shots of the horse race were filmed on location, but many of the close-ups were inserted later on a Republic soundstage. Even the White-a-Morn cottage was replicated on a studio stage, with a bit of the country lane leading up to it. But when this particular scene, the morning after the wedding, was about to be shot, Andrew Matlin noticed something wrong.
I walked on the set, and something was wrong, and it suddenly dawned on me that they had on, the wardrobe man had put on their regular daytime wardrobe, and they didn't have on the wardrobe that they had on at the wedding, which they'd been drinking all night, right? So I went up to Jack, and I said, excuse me, but I think that they're in the wrong wardrobe because the wedding, you know, they're still drinking, and they should be in their wedding wardrobe. And he went like this. Well, I could see that it was blank, but that was okay, too. He said, you're right. That's a note I made.
So we changed the wardrobe. Gave me some satisfaction, and I like the way he handled it.
This is a copy of the original shooting script for The Quiet Man. Now, some of what was written here and intended to be in the picture never made it to the finished film, including the very first scene. Screenwriter Frank Nugent intended to introduce Sean Thornton on the train, bringing him to Castleton. There was even some banter with a mother and son in the same compartment. The son gives Thornton an apple. The scene was planned to be shot near the end of the film's production schedule. It never was. But anticipating that it would be, John Wayne is dutifully holding an apple as he disembarks from the train. In the script, there's much more conversation with Michelene as he takes Sean Thornton to his birthplace. And as originally written, when Sean first sets eyes on Mary Kate, she greets him in Gaelic. There are many other changes, small and large, one can find in the shooting script, but none so interesting as the first exchange between Michelene, Barry Fitzgerald, and Father Lonergan, Ward Bond. This is what we see in the finished film.
Sean, I'd like to have a little word with Michelene here in reference to
sure thing, Father.
But we never do get to hear what the two men discuss. An original draft of the scene and the final script confirm what was deleted. It's here we first learn that Michelene is the official village bookmaker. And what's more, Father Lonergan is a very good customer who's financially behind the eight ball. The scene was shot and later cut at the insistence of Hollywood censors, the Production Code Administration. For a film that deals with sex and marital relations in such a forthright manner, The Quiet Man had relatively few problems with the censors, except in the state of Ohio, which insisted that this short scene be cut.
Impetuous. Homeric.
Even with these cuts, the film still ran long, much longer than Republic Pictures' boss, Herbert J. Yates, wanted it to. He'd told Ford in no uncertain terms that The Quiet Man could run no more than 2 hours. Ford's final cut, after all the trims he could bear to make, was 2 hours and 9 minutes. So he tricked Yates and told him he'd cut the film down. Then he had a screening for the studio boss and other company executives. They loved the film and eagerly anticipated the climactic brawl between Wayne and McLaglen. But at exactly 2 hours into the film, just as the fight was about to start, the screen went blank. Ford looked at Yates and said he couldn't think of any way to cut the film down, so he figured he'd just stop there. Yates gave in. The film remained 129 minutes long. All the film's ingredients blended together in perfect harmony. And even Herb Yates had a feeling he had a hit on his hands. This is how Republic promoted their picture in the original Coming Attractions preview.
I'd like to tell you about The Quiet Man. He's John Wayne in a picture you'll soon be cheering. It's the story of Sean Thornton, a right-intended man who came from America to forget his past in Innisfree. There he met a fiery red-headed lass, and the village marriage broker went to work.
That's a pretty bonnet you have on.
Bonnet? Don't you be talking to me about bonnets. After leaving mine stuck up there like a...
Easy now. Have the good manners not to hit the man until he's your husband and entitled to hit you back.
Then her bully of a brother, Red Will Danaher, refused to pay her rightful dowry.
There'll be no locks or bolts between us, Mary Kate, except those in your own mercenary little heart.
Mary Kate left him to go to Dublin, but he caught her at the station and brought her back with the whole town watching him do it.
I'll pay you.
Never. Then the fight was on. A fight they're still talking about in Innisfree. It's a wonderful picture. The finest ever brought to the screen by John Ford, and he's won 3 Academy Awards. His direction makes unforgettable the performances of John Wayne, Maureen O'Hara, Barry Fitzgerald, and Victor McLaglen.
The Quiet Man became one of the biggest successes in Republic Pictures history, and one of the biggest hits of John Ford's career. The Academy Awards the movie won for Ford and cinematographers Winton C. Hoke and Archie Stout were just the icing on the cake. But the real proof of their success has come in the years since the film's first release. No one would dispute that The Quiet Man has earned the right to be called a classic. But it's gone further than that. It's a film that people love, which is only fitting, because so much love went into it.
In Ashford Castle, towards the end of our location shooting, when we had a dinner, big dinner planned, with Ford sitting at the end of the table, and we were all in this long, long table just like this. And he got up and made a very soul-searching kind of a speech where he said it was so happy, he was so happy to be here with making this film, which was his dream film to make, with all the closest friends he had in the business, and Duke and Victor and Ward and Maureen. And he said, this to me would be the perfect way for me to end my career. In other words, he was inferring that with this tremendous big family gathering, that this was his swan song. Well, that was 1951, and he went on through 1963. So he went on another good 12 years after his swan song.
The Quiet Man turned out to be the film John Ford hoped it would be. Moviegoers have always cherished it, and it seems likely they always will.